everyone, it's Erin with Hail Varsity. I am joined by Anna of Hurrdat Sports. We are back for another week of some football talk. We really appreciated you joining us last week and welcoming Anna to the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. And we did make a promise, Anna.
We did.
That we were going to talk about the offensive line. But first, before we dive into this, because it is a really, really big topic, how are you this week?
You know, I'm doing great. I'm excited for what's to come. Big Ten Media Days on the horizon, so it's an exciting time for sure.
Yeah, if anyone's trying to keep track at home, Nebraska actually kicks off fall camp, the 27th. So here's what you need to know with that. Big Ten Media Days is actually the 26th and the 27th. I hope I'm not getting my dates all wrong.
I think that's right.
I think I'm right on this. I need to look at my calendar, and I'm pulling that calendar up right now. So, that my calendar pulled up June. That doesn't make any sense. Let's see, because I do want to make sure I give, yes, the 26th. Here's why that is important. Nebraska is actually going to go even earlier on the 26th than pretty much anybody else because they need to get back to Lincoln and get started on fall camp because of the week 0 football game. That just happens to be in another country. So we are going to be we're going to be up early on Wednesday getting back to Nebraska. So it's going to be a wild 48 hours.
It will be, yeah.
But it'll be great. We'll get a ton of information. We don't yet know who the players going to Big Ten Media Days are. Maybe one will be an offensive lineman.
We could speculate.
I still think Garrett Nelson is a shoo-in. He is one I definitely think. But maybe we see a Turner Corcoran, a Teddy Prohaska there. Maybe. So let's just talk about them. We hear you. And it got brought up, by the way, last week when I said I can feel the questions.
Yeah.
A couple of people jokingly said, I was literally about to ask that question right as you said it. Yes, when we are talking about all of these different position groups, whether it's quarterback, running back, wide receiver, the number one thing people say is, that's great. What does it mean if you don't have an offensive line that can do something, that can actually hold that line, give room for the running backs to run, make the space for the wide receivers to get out where they need to make those catches. So we hear you. Let's talk about it. Anna, you did a great job noting a lot of this stuff out. So let's just start here. What is maybe the arguably biggest question as we head into the season when it comes to this offensive line?
For sure. I mean, whatever offensive line the Huskers will field at Northwestern and Ireland will be, they've never played a meaningful snap together. Mm-hmm. So it's a new front and something that the whole team will have to get used to. And like you said, the O-line is the heart of the offense. It's the heart of the entire team. It's where things start to generate and happen. So some big losses with Nori Noeli, starting left guard, so he's out the entire season. And then obviously Cam Jurgens is a huge replacement that'll need to be made. So he started every play last year. You just can't replicate that experience and that familiarity with the players and just being comfortable. Mm-hmm. I mean, center is such an important position. There were obviously issues last year with the snaps, and that's something that will need to be hammered in, and I'm sure that's been the focus of the offensive line this offseason. But it's something that, it's the biggest question mark. These guys haven't played a snap together besides what they've done in fall camp and some of the spring game action, but it's a big question mark for Husker fans, and it's what they all want to know about, and that's why we're talking about it today, because again, that's where everything is generated, is that offensive line.
And I do want to just point out, for anyone who asks specifically about what happened with Nori, he did say he was the one who actually came forward and made the apology that he won't be playing this upcoming season. Scott Frost in Nebraska ultimately then released a statement saying that they support him, he'll remain on the team, he'll practice through fall, and then they look forward to him returning in 2023. But as for specifics, because I have seen that question come through, they did not tell us what he specifically tested positive for. But with that said, there are obviously, I think if you look at the NCAA's rule books, there's about 10 to 12 depending. Why I said 10 to 12, there's a couple that are sport specific.
Right.
So for instance, there's a couple that are only specific to rifle, which is really interesting. But I just wanted to throw that out there, that we are not in the place of speculating, and we're also not going to say something that it is 100% Nori and Nebraska's place to share if they ever want to or not. When it comes to something like that, all we know is that he tested positive for a substance that falls in the NCAA's not allowed list. And so, like I said, I know I've seen some of those comments, and that's why you haven't seen any direct confirmation of what, because honestly, I actually don't know how much it matters unless it's a bigger issue beyond one particular player.
Exactly.
So I digress. the one thing that I do want to say also is we're not even just talking about a brand new offensive line. We're talking a brand new offensive line coach in Donovan Raiola. Now, he is familiar with Nebraska. Obviously, Nebraska is familiar with the Raiola family. He has plenty of experience, comes to Nebraska from the Chicago Bears, has gotten to work with this group very quickly. We've heard good things so far, but it is difficult because we didn't, as the media, get to see any practice through spring. The only practice we technically got to see was what you saw, which was the spring game. And we don't know what we'll see through fall camp either. So it becomes a little bit of like taking people's words for it. And one of those is actually one of the wide receivers who spoke about what they were seeing.
Yeah, I talked to Brody Belt just about the offensive line and what he's seen. So he told me that the O-line group is always there the earliest and the latest after practice. So that's some good things to hear, that the O-line is putting in that extra work. They're always there 20 minutes before lift. And the O-line actually started the trend where the whole team wears the same outfit to lift, which it sounds really small, but that's a really big thing, I think, especially with position groups. The O-line started that trend in the weight room, and then the whole team picked up on it. They had a player meeting and we're like, hey, let's do something that's uniform for the entire team, just to show that unity. And I also talked to Teddy Prohaska just about the team and where the O-line was at the moment, and everything he said, the thing that stuck out to me the most was unity, and talking about how he didn't really say like, oh, I'm getting better every day. He said this unit's getting better and we're learning and going through all these changes that they've had, losing guys, they've stuck together really well. And I think Raiola's really implemented a standard for that team, and that's obvious because of going early to lift, staying late after practice. There's a lot of buy-in, I think, with the O-line, and that's great to hear because, again, a lot of new faces, a lot of guys just trying to get to know each other and how each other work, and it's big time for the Huskers.
And I can already hear unity means, it's great, all this stuff, what happens in a game this season.
Right.
And honestly, and I think, and for those of you that have been here and watched many of our videos in the last few months, you've heard this multiple times, that we can only tell you what we expect. We can only tell you what we, think we might see based on the information that is provided and what we have been able to see. But obviously, a lot of this is unknown. We don't know what we're going to see until Nebraska walks out on the field in Ireland against Northwestern, and we see, even speculating on who's going to line up where, to a degree, like we had kind of thought, especially with Nori, oh, well, he's gonna slot in here. Well, that changes everything now. Totally. So who slots in where, who becomes the center, who takes over in different spots. So there's a lot of unknowns, and it's similar to like a lot of positions. I feel like you won't have an official answer until the first game of the season, because Nebraska's not going to hand us a depth chart on Monday so that Pat Fitzgerald can start like prepping his team for like who's lining up where. So it's something for me where I'm like, this offensive line remains a mystery, and even what we see against Northwestern, who knows how that team continues to develop, that group continues to develop through the season. But every single person who brings up amazing recruiting and for wide receivers, amazing recruiting for this. But what does it mean if they can't have any kind of blocking or any kind of protection? I can't argue with any of that.
Well, my favorite part when I was talking to Brody Belt, first of all, he described the O-line as a million times better. I'll quote him on that, and we'll see.
She does have it quoted. Like, that is a Brody Belt quote.
Brody told me that, so I'll take his word for now. But one of the things that stuck out to me most is that the offensive line in the running back room, Brody's not technically a running back. He works with that wide receiver
group
as
well. Which is why I kind of said running. Yeah, he's listed as a wide receiver. He's prominently a wide receiver, but,
he'll be on those running downs, though, as well. So we'll see him all over the field. But Brody also works really closely with the running back group, and he said that those two have gotten a lot closer this year and more than he's seen in years past. And Trevin Lubin told me that as well, another guy that's actually in that running back group, just that the O-line in the running back room is like kind of bonding a little bit more, because that's so important, I think, with a team, just having that camaraderie, because the O-line, the running backs don't work unless the O-line is. And also with Brian Applewhite as well, he has experience with coaching the offensive line, so something that Trevin and Brody mentioned to me was that they're learning how the offensive line works a lot more than in years past. So rather than, just learning their plays, learning their movements, they're understanding, okay, why is the offensive line moving like this? Why are we moving in correlation with them? So I think that's really important. That experience in the offensive line with Applewhite is going to pay dividends for that running back group.
And, Nebraska is trying to do... It's one of those things with this offensive line. Obviously, Nebraska wants to get back to having the pipeline of the past. We know that it hasn't mapped out quite the way that Nebraska has wanted, but I would say, and if you want more on this specifically, HailVarsity.com, Brandon Vogel just published our latest most interesting Huskers piece, which is actually most intriguing. I always want to say interesting, but it is kind of interesting too. But it's a twofer. It's both Teddy Prohaska and Turner Corcoran, and the argument is that you really can't talk about one without talking about the other.
Yeah.
So they come in together at the number 4 spot. So if you want to dive into more specifics on what those two bring to this team and what we'll be looking for from them for Nebraska in 2022, I really encourage you to head to HailVarsity.com. Brandon did a really nice job of breaking all of that down, especially when talking about what Nebraska was able to do early in the season in 2021 and thinking, hey, they have found their starting 5 up front.
Right.
And then the same group had to change very quickly when Teddy Prohaska was lost. That's the biggest thing for Nebraska is this group ready to rotate around? Mm-hmm. If something happens, is the next person ready to step up? We always hear that comment about next man up, but we didn't see a lot of stability when change happens. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's the biggest question for Nebraska in 2022 and beyond is when things happen, do they have a group that's able to slide here, move here? And now we know Donovan Raiola wants that. He wants a group that can play anywhere.
Yep.
Is that what we get this year? To be determined.
TBD.
And I mean, that's so frustrating. I have to just say, if you're somebody who wants, a hard answer when it comes to Nebraska's offensive line, there's a reason that this question keeps coming up. And I even just wrote earlier this week about Nebraska's running backs, and in doing that I was looking at their breakdown of essentially, and I guess I didn't put in this one, but when I was talking about running backs and the recruiting and everything else, people have been like, what does the offensive line look like? Because we get a lot of wide receiver, running back talk, and people are like, what does it mean? Nebraska does have 3 offensive line commits in its 2023 recruiting class right now. So there is a tension there. So when you hear of other position groups being recruited, don't fret. There are 3 offensive line recruits in this class. They are trying to consistently build this room up, but unfortunately we just kind of don't know what is there until we see it for ourselves.
Right. You just don't know until the first snap is literally played, because these guys haven't had a meaningful snap together, and it's going to be, I think, some adjustments, and I wouldn't expect that offensive line to be perfect on week 0, but so weird to say week 0, by the way.
Strange.
We'll see. I think there's some depth. I think there's a lot of heart in that offensive line group, and Teddy, if I'm him, you have so much to prove to yourself. I think coming back from injury, there's so much room to show how he plays and what he can mean to that team. So I think Teddy's got to have a little bit of, not a chip on his shoulder necessarily, obviously was an injury, but Teddy has to be ready to go. He's got to be itching to get out there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opportunity on this offensive line with the loss of Nori and the departure of a player like Cam Jurgens. You have a lot of opportunity for players to step up. So that's going to be a big thing. And I will offer this, as I always do. If you want to keep this conversation going, if you have questions, please leave them in the comments of this video. We do really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, and we really enjoyed the conversation last week after our video looking at the new roster updates, which, by the way, after that video came out, Nebraska just went ahead and added another edge recruit, commitment. So it's just they're clearly they made a change with the roster, and then boom, there's your next edge commitment.
Right.
But we did really appreciate all of your conversation and continuing to give us something to talk about each week as we get ready for the season.
Plenty to talk about. But
the biggest thing for me, and I think this is where I like to be as a member of the media, is I don't want to tell you that I have all of the answers when it comes to something when I simply don't. And with this offensive line, there's so many unknowns. And there's a lot of room for people to step up, take spots from others, or secure spots that maybe they didn't previously have.
Right.
And I'm eager to see what Donovan Raiola has done with this room, and I'm eager to see what they're able to do on the field and how that translates to the success of the quarterback, the wide receivers, and the running backs. And if they accomplish what they have said they will, all of that should come together nicely.
Oh, definitely.
But because I want to make somebody mad really quick, just fair warning, they are going to pass the ball quite a bit this year. I do feel confident in saying that.
Yeah.
That is pretty much a Mark Whipple, his
sure.
quarterbacks are going to throw the ball. They don't want quarterbacks running quite like we have seen in the past.
No, Taylor Martinez out there.
Adrian Martinez.
Well, Taylor. In the past.
It's true, but Adrian also did the same thing.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
See, I'm so used to now, how many people have seen like the...
I've seen that, the College World Series thing.
Yeah, and then...
That was bad.
It's okay.
And it's funny because it's like in Omaha too.
I know.
But obviously the production crew probably wasn't familiar with, but we digress. But.
We digress. Look at me.
The Martinez guys can run. That's all we need to know.
Honestly, that's the truth though. The Martinez quarterbacks could run, oftentimes scrambling out of situations.
Yeah.
They do not have that being the interest for a Casey Thompson or a Chubba Purdy or a Logan Smothers. Which...
Keep them in the pocket.
Keep them in the pocket. We can dive into that too. I know quarterback is a big one. That's another thing.
Maybe that's our next topic.
It might be, because I know a lot of people are like, who is going to be the starter?
Right.
Great question. Also, really quick, go check out the community tab here on our YouTube channel. We are asking you what you thought about how the season will go. How many wins will Nebraska have this season? A lot of you are kind of between... in that 6 to 8 range, it seems. So go vote. We'd love to hear what you think over there. A couple of you are very optimistic. I saw a couple of 12-0s, which maybe
more power to you.
Maybe go buy a lottery ticket if you end up being right on that one, because that is a hard feat for any team to go 12-0 in a season. But please go check that community tab, vote. We'd love to hear what you think. As always, thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us once again.
Always a blast.
It's gonna be great. Go check Brandon's Most Intriguing Huskers on Teddy Prohaska and Turner Corcoran, so you can get more offensive line talk. We will be back next week with even more. Talk to you later.